that's a very moot point, because you see, while you may not have sympathy, you're at the same time creating a work that has to have integrity. It can't be something that doesn't talk to the reader because it is full of disdain or contempt of your own subjective views. Now, when I was asked to write on Vajpayee, I mean, the publisher actually told me that you should write it because you're a liberal and you'll be able to appreciate or understand this particular person who comes from a very different viewpoint than your own. And I had to struggle with that, frankly, because there were times when I didn't like Vajpayee, and there were times when I found that he was actually quite intellectually dishonest occasionally. He was morally very flawed. He was, in fact, in many ways guilty of trickery, a kind of kind of ideological trickery, sort of moral trickery. But then, all of this makes up the, what Immanuel Kant called the crooked timber of mankind. And we are dealing with flawed, crooked timber. Whether it's Indira Gandhi or whether it's Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And out of the crooked timber of mankind, nothing straight comes. So I think my learning from writing these two biographies is that actually everybody is crooked timber. Some have it sort of, exposed more, or some hide it better, or, for example, you were talking about the parliamentary debates, Ulekh. There was this big issue or controversy. Did Vajpayee call Indira Gandhi Durga after the Bangladesh war? And of course, it's not in the parliamentary records. I searched through it. I was trying to find Durga. It's not there. And all the BJP supporters of Vajpayee said nothing doing. He certainly didn't call her Durga. There was no way he would call her Durga. Whereas, in fact, I found two of his confidants, N.M. Ghatate and H.K. Dua, who actually told me on record that he had called her Durga and he had admitted to them that he called her Durga. Now, who should I believe? Who does the biographer believe? Does the biographer believe the written record, which obviously it's not there in the written record? I mean, Sitaram Yechuri claims that it actually is there, it was expunged, but I could not find it in the record that I looked at, in the parliamentary speeches that I looked at. So because of that, I was forced to introduce a qualification because I couldn't find it, you see. Now, is that the truth that he didn't call her Durga? Is the truth that he called her Durga? His best friends vouch for the fact that he did. His party supporters say he didn't. It's not in the written record. So that's all I can say. As a biographer, that's all I can say as a person investigating a material, because all I have is the material. I know that I have my beliefs. I can sort of imagine him calling her that. How would such a story emerge if he didn't call her that? But since I have no record for it, and since I can't find the record for it, I can't put it in the book. I can't put it as truth in the book. So these qualifications, a biographer has to come up. And the point about what Ulekh was saying about investigation, about biographies as investigative journalism. Absolutely, it's investigative journalism. It's also investigating the personality. It's also investigating kind of the psychoanalysis of a person, because I think that's quite interesting to me. Just to come to a slightly different point, how many here have read Harry's book, Spare, Prince Harry? Or seen the Netflix documentary Harry and Meghan, right? I wish that Indian public figures would adopt a healthy dose of Harry and Meghan style candidness. Because, they're at least being truthful about what they went through. They're being truthful about what happened in the royal family. I mean, in India, we have public personalities hiding behind power and secrecy and authority and walls, so that we often don't know what the private life is of the person. Now, do public figures have a right to a personal life? Do public figures have a right to say, thus far and no further, you can't come into my life anymore? Now, in the Western press, actually public figures don't have a right to a private life because everything is out in the open. Mahatma Gandhi, for example, the reason why we know about his experiments with sexuality, with celibacy, with cleaning of the toilets, with his own experiments with diet, is because Gandhi is writing about them all the time himself. He's himself pouring out his ideas about celibacy and about, sexual experimentation and all of that. So Gandhi is writing about all of this himself. Now, why don't Indian public figures be more open about their lives? Why should there be this veil of secrecy? I'm not saying we should go into the bedroom, but I'm just saying, why should there be this veil of power and secrecy and authority that if the media goes thus far and no further, we will slap you with criminal defamation, we will slap you with, this law and that law. If a public figure is committing abuse or is engaging in emotional abuse or physical abuse or engaging in some forms of personal behavior which are immoral, I think the taxpayer has a right to know. Citizens who are voting for him or her have a right to know. So, in this sense, again, I mean, when a biographer is working, you come across a lot of personal detail. Now, are you going to put in all the personal details, even if it makes you a little squeamish, even if it makes you, a little embarrassed? I didn't, because I felt that there is still a culture of authority and reverence in India that such tell-all accounts will not be accepted. But mind you, I have a problem with that culture of authority and reverence. I abided by it. I did not cross certain limits. But I do feel that this culture of that we have to preserve a certain feudal distance with our leaders and we can't talk about their private lives. I think this is very old-fashioned. It is very feudal. It is very, it's not modern. I think public figures should be much more open about their private lives and should have the courage to be like Gandhi, actually, who was much more open. Now, in both the books that I've written, both the biographies that I've written, both these people had extremely colorful personal lives. And they had very open personal lives. And Vajpayee was never ashamed of his relationship with the woman he lived with. He was not married to her. He lived with her all his life. She was married to somebody else. He lived with her husband, her children, all together in the same house. And he wasn't ashamed of it. Now, if he wasn't ashamed of it and he was doing it openly, why can't the biographer write more about it? So, I just think that we're too squeamish in India. We're too careful. We shouldn't have to be so careful.
I think, Sagarika, if I may interrupt you, I think that also comes because of the kind of strict divide we have between what is public and what is private. Yeah. And there's a lot of hypocrisy when it comes...
hypocritical, isn't it? It's the double lie.
Deeply
it's
hypocritical.
A double lie. Because,
deeply hypocritical.
The feminists would say the personal is the political. So in that sense, I think this shattering of the hypocrisy also is something that I think a biographer should do. So I think if you're planning to write a biography, I think don't be squeamish. Of course, don't put yourself in a position where you feel you're being embarrassed by what you write, but have a healthy dose of irreverence towards your subject.